Greetings everyone and welcome to Chill Literacy. Hello, happy Wednesday. It's been like 4 weeks. I'm very sorry, but I have been so busy. This last month, March, has just, I don't think I had a single day off. It was a lot. And I am back for 2 weeks. And then probably not back for a little while after that again. Yeah, I am sorry, and I would like to sort of find out a way of doing it. I mean, what we used to do is we used to pre-record things, but I just don't have the time or the drive space to do that anymore. So yeah, I feel kind of bad. I do feel very bad actually having big breaks, because I like doing this, and I know you all enjoy having a chill space to hang out and hear books. So yeah, I will have a think about how to make it more possible. Darn that whole making a living business. Yeah, well, I mean, making a living doing self-employed things as a musician, when you are, on a 9 to 5, it's slightly easier to be able to schedule things. I ain't, and am frequently in the wrong country. So yeah, although, it's good. But yes, thank you very much to our resubscribers. Thank you very much to, who we got? We got Smallcog. Hello, good time zone to you. Thank you very much. Queck, thank you very much indeed. Andy Pants, thank you. And Darly Sam, hello. Hi. Yes, how is everybody? How are we all doing? I hope we are well. I hope we are doing well. Yes, we're not doing anything April Foolsy today, by the way. Suddenly realised that it was the 1st of April. I was like, oh no, you can't trust anything. But, excuse me, you could trust the fact that I am here and yawning, as per usual. You went to IKEA, bought a table, messed up the assembly a tiny bit, but it's still standing. Well, I mean, that the still standing part is the important thing. IKEA is a dangerous place. Yes. And full of nice, fun things. Mostly well, shiny happy goth. A tiny hint of migraine. I hope that stays as tiny hint. I hope it doesn't blossom into anything worse. It's a coffee table, so it's not like it's going to get very... Oh yeah, that's alright then. That's not bad. Yeah. Do I have any updates on my life and adventures and things? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's happened. Work has been annoying, but only 20 minutes left now. I believe in you, Andy. Yeah, I've been to various different places. Cologne's a fairly normal one. I went to... Oh, I'm going to screw this up again. Is it Rostrov or something? I can't remember. Sam can pronounce it better than me, apparently. But anyway, not Breslau, because that's the German name for it. Wrocław, yeah, there we go. That. Which is very pretty. It's got a very nice town centre, city centre. Thank you, Lady Mephistopheles. That feels like a bit of a pity. A pity well done. I don't think I did it that well. You approve of this pronunciation? Good. Polish is hard. Polish is very hard. Hopefully this one will do what your migraines usually do and clear up in the early evening. Yes, I hope so too. But yes, everybody was very friendly there. That was nice. I enjoyed that. There was a very good coffee place there. There were several good coffee places there, but I only went to one. Only had time to go to one. And then I was in Vienna, which is always a good one, even though it's not exactly a cheap place to have to sort out your own food and stuff. And then I was in Hamburg, which my second time there. Both times I've been there, it's been bitterly bloody cold and windy. And I'd like to explore Hamburg a bit, but if it's that cold, no thank you. But the Elbphilharmonie, which is where I've played both times, I've now done the big hall and the small hall, and they're both gorgeous, is just the most incredible building. Like, it's astonishing. Massive and just an architectural marvel. You finally managed to get blood work done. Now you're on 3 new medications. Hooray! I hope they solve problems for you. Yeah, that's good. And I had my cousin's wedding on Sunday, which was... it was good. It was nice. And I had, I think, 3.5 hours sleep. Which was entertaining. It was the worst weekend, turns out, to travel back and have to get up early, because it was clocks going forward. And so I got up at 4, which meant I got up at 3 UK time, which meant I got up at 2. Because clocks went forwards, so it meant I got 3.5 hours sleep and then had to fly back to the UK, drive from Heathrow to my cousin's wedding, and then was there until whatever time we left. Which meant you got up at 1, which meant I'd never slept. Yes. And we left around, I think 9, something like that, 9 p.m. Because, you know, we're old people now. And you know, the disco started, and we were just like, yeah, no, we're too old for this. It's too loud. We need to be out of here. And then, yeah, I think by the time we were asleep, I think I had been up for like 22 hours. So yeah, that was an entertaining weekend. I was surprisingly okay. I was expecting to be more tired, but you know, half an hour before I went to bed. Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that was entertaining. But excuse me. But yeah, that's kind of been my March, really. Had a cool solo gig. That was very fun in London. Yeah. Got to play a Carnex. That was entertaining. Stupid instrument. Very impractical. Very cool, though. And yeah. I think that's probably all the excitement. Yeah. And then, where am I next? I'm in Dublin next, which would be good. And then I don't know where I am after that. I've sort of lost track of all of that. Did I see any cool dooting specimens when you were gigging? Dooting specimens? What do you mean exactly by that? What, as in cool instruments? Or what instrument is that? What, a Carnex? It is an ancient Iron Age trumpet, basically. Did I see any cool... I mean, yes. Yeah, I did. I mean, it's very, like, basically, my colleague, who is the trumpet player for one of the ensembles I do a lot of work with, his and his wife's flat is just, like, full of all sorts of doot-powered instruments, and there's just so many. It's insane. So it's always quite fun to visit his. It's just like, oh yeah, The Carnex is a boar-headed Iron Age trumpet horn thing. Like, it's just a big long tube with a boar's head at the end, and makes a really cool noise, and is surprisingly not very heavy, but just very, very awkward to hold, because it's so sort of end heavy and so long that you sort of need long arms to play it and somehow bring it to your mouth and attempt to doot machines, indeed. So yeah, all fun and games. But hopefully at some point soonish I should be getting a ceramic horn, which is just like a very, very primitive horn that is like it's like a horn, as in like a cow horn shape, but it was made out of clay by I think it's Neolithic Stone Age. I think so. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that'll be fun. Dutophone, yes, exactly. So yeah. Anyway, we should do some reading. I should read some stuff. We have 2 stories tonight. Not in any. There's no real theme here. I just sort of picked 2 stories and went with it. You're excited for the Artemis 2 launch today? Yeah, Sam was telling me about that. Very exciting indeed. Oh yeah, and Sam and I finally watched Dunk 2, which I feel like they really should have thought about how the title looked when they chose the font for it, because the middle slash and the E just doesn't really exist. If people know what I'm talking about June. But very pretty, nice music. Don't like Timothy Chalamet. Didn't really like him anyway. He seemed like a bit of an arrogant little what's-it, but yeah, Tom Holland can beat Timothy Chalamet in a fight any day. And that's because he was a ballet dancer. Anyway, let us commence with our first short story tonight. I have put the text up at the top of chat. And the first short story is written by a woman with a pen name. So her actual name is Karen Blixen of Rungstedlund, which is a fantastic name. She married a cousin, Baron Blixen. I mean, Blixen's just Baron Blixen. It's such a good name. Anyway, I will use her pen name just because, you know, that's what the story's under. So, if we are all sitting comfortably and we have some kind of, you know, beverage or cat, don't eat cats, but, you know, cat for comfort, blanket, whatever, then possibly jigsaw, then we shall begin with The Sailor Boy's Tale by Isak Dinesen. The barque Charlotte was on her way from Marseille to Athens in grey weather on a high sea after 3 days' heavy gale. A small sailor boy named Simon stood on the wet, swinging deck, held on to a shroud, and looked up towards the drifting clouds and to the upper topgallant yard of the mainmast. A bird that had sought refuge upon the mast had got her feet entangled in some loose tackle yarn of the halyard, and, high up there, struggled to get free. The boy on the deck could see her wings flapping and her head turning from side to side. Through his own experience of life, he had come to the conviction that in this world everyone must look after himself and expect no help from others. But the mute, deadly fight kept him fascinated for more than an hour. He wondered what kind of bird it would be. These last days a number of birds had come to settle in the barque's rigging: swallows, quails, and a pair of peregrine falcons. He believed that this bird was a peregrine falcon. He remembered how, many years ago, in his own country and near his home, he had once seen a peregrine falcon quite close, sitting on a stone and flying straight up from it. Perhaps this was the same bird. He thought, that bird is like me. Then she was there, and now she is here. At that, a fellow feeling arose in him, a sense of common tragedy. He stood looking at the bird with his heart in his mouth. There were none of the sailors about to make fun of him. He began to think out how he might go up by the shrouds to help the falcon out. He brushed his hair back and pulled up his sleeves. gave the deck round him a great glance, and climbed up. He had to stop a couple of times in the swaying rigging. It was, indeed, he found when he got to the top of the mast, a peregrine falcon. As his head was on a level with hers, she gave up her struggle and looked at him with a pair of angry, desperate yellow eyes. He had to take hold of her with one hand while he got his knife out and cut off the tackle yarn. He was scared as he looked down, but at the same time he felt that he had been ordered up by nobody, but this was his own venture. And this gave him a proud, steadying sensation, as if the sea and the sky, the ship, the bird and himself were all one. Just as he had freed the falcon, she hacked him in the thumb so that the blood ran, and he nearly let her go. He grew angry with her and gave her a clout on the head. Then he put her inside his jacket and climbed down again. When he reached the deck, the mate and the cook were standing there, looking up. They roared to him to ask what he had to do in the mast. He was so tired that the tears were in his eyes. He took the falcon out and showed her to them, and she kept still within his hands. They laughed and walked off. Simon set the falcon down, stood back and watched her. After a while he reflected that she might not be able to get up from the slippery deck, so he caught her once more, walked away with her and placed her upon a bolt of canvas. A little after she began to trim her feathers, made 2 or 3 sharp jerks forward, and then suddenly flew off. The boy could follow her flight through above the troughs of the grey sea. He thought, "There flies my falcon." When the Charlotte came home, Simon signed aboard another ship, and 2 years later he was a light hand on the schooner Hebe, lying at Bodø, high up on the coast of Norway, to buy herrings. To the great herring markets of Bodø, ships came together from all corners of the world. Here were Swedish, Finnish and Russian boats, a forest of masts, and on shore a turbulent, irregular display of life, with many languages spoken, and mighty fights. On the shore booths had been set up, and the Lapps, small native people, noiseless in their movements, with watchful eyes, whom Simon had never seen before, came down to sell bead-embroidered leather goods. It was April. The sky and the sea were so clear that it was difficult to hold one's eyes up against them. Salt, infinitely wide, and filled with bird shrieks, as if someone were incessantly whetting invisible knives on all sides, high up in heaven. Simon was amazed at the lightness of these April evenings. He knew no geography, and did not assign it to the latitude, but he took it as a sign of unwanted goodwill in the universe, a favour. Simon had been small for his age all his life, but this last winter he had grown and had become strong of limb. That good luck, he felt, must spring from the very same source as the sweetness of the weather, from a new benevolence in the world. He had been in need of such encouragement, for he was timid by nature. Now he asked for no more. The rest he felt to be his own affair. He went about slowly and proudly. One evening he was ashore with land leave and walked up to the booth of a small Russian trader, a man who sold gold watches. All the sailors knew that his watches were made from bad metal and would not go. Still they bought them and paraded them about. Simon looked at these watches for a long time, but did not buy. The old Russian had diverse goods in his shop, and amongst others a case of oranges. Simon had tasted oranges on his journeys. He bought one and took it with him. He meant to go up on a hill from where he could see the sea and suck it there. As he walked on, and had got to the outskirts of the place, he saw a little girl in a blue frock, standing at the other side of a fence and looking at him. She was 13 or 14 years old, as slim as an eel, but with a round, clear, freckled face and a pair of long plaits. The two looked at one another. Who are you looking out for? Simon asked, to say something. The girl's face broke into an ecstatic, presumptuous smile. For the man I'm going to marry, of course, she said. Something in her countenance made the boy confident and happy. He grinned a little at her. That will perhaps be me, he said. Said the girl. He is a few years older than you, I can tell you. Why? Said Simon. You are not grown up yourself. The little girl shook her head solemnly. Nay, she said, but when I grow up I will be exceedingly beautiful, and wear brown shoes with heels and a hat. Will you have an orange? Asked Simon, who could give her none of the things she had named. She looked at the orange and at him. They are very good to eat, said he. Why do you not eat it yourself, then? She asked. I've eaten so many already, said he, when I was in Athens. Here I had to pay a mark for it. What is your name? Asked she. My name is Simon, said he. What is yours? Nora, said the girl. What do you want for your orange now, Simon? When he heard his name in her mouth, Simon grew bold. Will you give me a kiss for the orange? He asked. Nora looked at him gravely for a moment. Yes, she said, I should not mind giving you a kiss. He grew as warm as if he had been running quickly. When she stretched out her hand for the orange, he took hold of it. At that moment, somebody in the house called out for her. That is my father, said she, and tried to give him back the orange, but he would not take it. Then come again tomorrow, she said quickly. Then I will give you a kiss. At that, she slipped off. He stood and looked after her, and a little later went back to his ship. Simon was not in the habit of making plans for the future, and now he did not know whether he would be going back to her or not. The following evening he had to stay aboard, as the other sailors were going ashore, and he did not mind that either. He meant to sit on the deck with the ship's dog, Balthazar, and to practice upon a concertina that he had purchased some time ago. The pale evening was all round him, the sky was faintly roseate, the sea was quite calm, like milk and water. Only in the wake of the boats going inshore it broke into streaks of vivid indigo. Simon sat and played. After a while his own music began to speak to him so strongly that he stopped, got up and looked upward. Then he saw that the full moon was sitting high on the sky. The sky was so light that she hardly seemed needed there. It was as if she had turned up by a caprice of her own. She was round, demure, and presumptuous. At that he knew that he must go ashore, whatever it was to cost him. But he did not know how to get away, since the others had taken the yawl with them. He stood on the deck for a long time, a small, lonely figure of a sailor boy on a boat, when he caught sight of a yawl coming in from a ship farther out, and hailed her. He found that it was the Russian crew from a boat named Anna going ashore. When he could make himself understood to them, they took him with them. They first asked him for money for his fare, then, laughing, gave it back to him. He thought, these people will be believing that I am going into town wenching. And then he felt with some pride that they were right, although at the same time they were infinitely wrong and knew nothing about anything. When they came ashore, they invited him to come in and drink in their company, and he would not refuse because they had helped him. One of the Russians was a giant, as big as a bear. He told Simon that his name was Ivan. He got drunk at once, and then fell upon the boy with a bear-like affection, pawed him, smiled and laughed into his face, made him a present of a gold watch chain, and kissed him on both cheeks. At that, Simon reflected that he also ought to give Nora a present when they met again, and as soon as he could get away from the Russians, he walked up to a booth that he knew of, and bought a small blue silk handkerchief, the same colour as her eyes. It was Saturday evening, and there were many people amongst the houses. They came in long rows, some of them singing, all keen to have some fun that night. Simon, in the midst of this rich, bawling life under the clear moon, felt his head light with the flight from the ship and the strong drinks. He crammed the handkerchief in his pocket. It was silk, which he had never touched before, a present for his girl. He could not remember the path up to Nora's house, lost his way, and came back to where he had started. Then he grew deadly afraid that he would be too late, and began to run. In a small passage between two wooden huts, he ran straight into a big man, and found that it was Ivan once more. The Russian folded his arms round him and held him. "Good, good," he cried in high glee. "I have found you, my little chicken. I have looked for you everywhere, and poor Ivan has wept because he lost his friend." "Let me go, Ivan," cried Simon. "Oh," said Ivan, "I shall go with you and get you what you want. My heart and my money are all yours, all yours. I have been 17 years old myself, a little lamb of God, and I want to be so, I've turned Scottish, and I want to be so again tonight." "Let me go," cried Simon. "I am in a hurry." Ivan held him so that it hurt, and patted him with his other hand. And patted him with his other hand. I feel it, he said. "Now trust to me, my little friend. Nothing shall part you and me. I hear the others coming. We will have such a night together as you will remember when you are our old grandpapa." Suddenly he crushed the boy to him, like a bear that carries off a sheep. The odious sensation of male bodily warmth and the bulk of a man close to him made the lean boy mad. He thought of Nora, waiting like a slender ship in the dim air, and of himself here in the hot embrace of a hairy animal. He struck Ivan with all his might. "I shall kill you, Ivan," he cried out, "if you do not let me go." "Oh, you will be thankful to me later on," said Ivan, and began to sing. Simon fumbled in his pocket for his knife and got it opened. He could not lift his hand, but he drove the knife furiously in under the big man's arm. Almost immediately he felt the blood spouting out and running down in his sleeve. Ivan stopped short in the song, let go his hold of the boy, and gave 2 long, deep grunts. The next second he tumbled down on his knees. Poor Ivan, he groaned. He fell straight on his face. At that moment Simon heard the other sailors coming along, singing in the by-street. He stood still for a minute, wiped his knife, and watched the blood spread into a dark pool underneath the big body. Then he ran. As he stopped for a second to choose his way, he heard the sailors behind him scream out over their dead comrade. He thought, "I must get down to the sea where I can wash my hand." But at the same time he ran the other way. After a little while he found himself on the path that he had walked on the day before, and it seemed as familiar to him as if he had walked it many 100 times in his life. He slackened his pace to look round, and suddenly saw Nora standing on the other side of the fence. She was quite close to him when he caught sight of her in the moonlight. Wavering and out of breath, he sank down on his knees. For a moment he could not speak. The little girl looked down at him. "Good evening, Simon," she said in her small coy voice. "I have waited for you a long time." And after a moment she added, "I have eaten your orange." "Oh, Nora!" cried the boy. "I have killed a man!" She stared at him, but did not move. "Why did you kill a man?" she asked after a moment. "To get here," said Simon, "because he tried to stop me. But he was my friend." Slowly he got onto his feet. "He loved me," the boy cried out, and at that burst into tears. "Yes," said she slowly and thoughtfully. "Yes, because you must be here in time." "Can you hide me?" he asked, "for they are after me." "Nay," said Nora, "I cannot hide you, for my father is the parson here at Bodo. and he would be sure to hand you over to them if he knew that you had killed a man." "Then," said Simon, "give me something to wipe my hands on." "What is the matter with your hands?" she asked, and took a little step forward. He stretched out his hands to her. "Is that your own blood?" she asked. "No," said he, "it's his." She took the step back again. "Do you hate me now?" he asked. "No, I do not hate you," said she, "but do put your hands at your back." As she did so, she came up close to him at the other side of the fence and clasped her arms round his neck. She pressed her young body to his and kissed him tenderly. He felt her face, cool as the moonlight, upon his own, and when she released him his head swam, and he did not know if the kiss had lasted a second or an hour. Nora stood up straight, her eyes wide open. "Now," she said slowly and proudly, "I promise you that I will never marry anybody as long as I live." The boy kept standing with his hands on his back, as if she had tied them there. "And now," she said, "you must run, for they are coming." They looked at one another. "Do not forget Nora," said she. He turned and ran. He leapt over a fence, and when he was down amongst the houses, he walked. He did not know at all where to go. As he came to a house from where music and noise streamed out, he slowly went through the door. The room was full of people. They were dancing in here. A lamp hung from the ceiling and shone down on them. The air was thick and brown with the dust rising from the floor. There were some women in the room, but many of the men danced with each other and gravely or laughingly stamped the floor. A moment after Simon had come in, the crowd withdrew to the walls to clear the floor for two sailors who were showing a dance from their own country. Simon thought, "Now very soon the men from the boat will come round to look for their comrade's murderer, and from my hands they will know that I have done it." These 5 minutes, during which he stood by the wall of the dancing room in the midst of the gay, sweating dancers, were of great significance to the boy. He himself felt it, as if during this time he grew up and became like other people. He did not entreat his destiny, nor complain. Here he was. He had killed a man and had kissed a girl. He did not demand any more from life, nor did life now demand any more from him. He was Simon, a man like the men round him, and going to die, as all men are going to die. He only became aware of what was going on outside him when he saw that a woman had come in and was standing in the midst of the cleared floor, looking round her. She was a short, broad old woman in the clothes of the Lapps, and she took her stand with such majesty and fierceness as if she owned the whole place. It was obvious that most of the people knew her and were a little afraid of her, although a few laughed. The din of the dancing room stopped when she spoke. "Where is my son?" she asked in a high, shrill voice, like a bird's. The next moment her eyes fell on Simon himself, and she steered through the crowd, which opened up before her, stretched out her old, skinny, dark hand, and took him by the elbow. "Come home with me now," she said. "You need not dance here tonight. You may be dancing a high enough dance soon." Simon drew back, for he thought that she was drunk. But as she looked him straight in the face with her yellow eyes, it seemed to him that he had met her before, and that he might do well in listening to her. The old woman pulled him with her across the floor, and he followed her without a word. "Do not birch your boy too badly, Sunniva," one of the men in the room cried to her. "He has done no harm, he only wanted to look at the dance." At the same moment, as they came out through the door, there was an alarm in the street. A flock of people came running down it, and one of them, as he turned into the house, knocked against Simon, looked at him and the old woman, and ran on. While the two walked along the street, the old woman lifted up her skirt and put the hem of it into the boy's hand. Wipe your hand on my skirt, she said. They had not gone far before they came to a small wooden house and stopped. The door to it was so low that they must bend to get through it. As the Lapp woman went in before Simon, still holding on to his arm, the boy looked up for a moment. The night had grown misty. There was a wide ring around the moon. The old woman's room was narrow and dark, but with one small window to it. A lantern stood on the floor and lighted it up dimly. It was all filled with reindeer skins and wolf skins, and with reindeer horn, such as the Lapps used to make their carved buttons and knife handles, and the air in here was rank and stifling. As soon as they were in, the woman turned to Simon, took hold of his head, and with her crooked fingers parted his hair and combed it down in Lapp fashion. She clapped a Lapp cap on him and stood back to glance at him. "Sit down on my stool now," she said, "but first take out your knife." She was so commanding in voice and manner that the boy could not but choose to do as she told him. He sat down on the stool, and he could not take his eyes off her face, which was flat and brown, and as if smeared with dirt in its net of fine wrinkles. As he sat there, he heard many people come along outside and stop by the house. Then someone knocked at the door, waited a moment, and knocked again. The old woman stood and listened, as still as a mouse. "Nay," said the boy, and got up. "This is no good, for it is me that they are after. It will be better for you to let me go out to them." "Give me your knife," said she. When he handed it to her, she stuck it straight into her thumb so that the blood spouted out, and she let it drip all over her skirt. "Come in, then," she cried. The door opened, and 2 of the Russian sailors came and stood in the opening. There were more people outside. "Has anybody come in here?" they asked. "We are after a man who has killed our mate, but he has run away from us. Have you seen or heard anybody this way?" The old Lapp woman turned upon them, and her eyes shone like gold in the lamplight. "Have I seen or heard anyone?" she cried. "I have heard you shriek murder all over the town. You frightened me and my poor silly boy there so that I cut my thumb as I was ripping the skin rug that I sew. The boy's too scared to help me, and the rug is all ruined. I shall make you pay me for that. If you are looking for a murderer, come in and search my house for me, and I shall know you when we meet again." She was so furious that she danced where she stood and jerked her head like an angry bird of prey. The Russian came in, looked round the room and at her and her blood-stained hand and skirt. "Do not put a curse on us now, Sunniva," he said timidly. "We know that you can do many things when you like. Here is a mark to pay you for the blood you have spilled." She stretched out her hand, and he placed a piece of money in it. She spat on it. "Then go, and there shall be no bad blood between us," said Sunniva, and shut the door after them. She stuck her thumb in her mouth and chuckled a little. The boy got up from his stool, stood straight up before her, and stared into her face. He felt as if he were swaying high up in the air, with but a small hold. "Why have you helped me?" he asked her. "Do you not know?" she answered. "Have you not recognized me yet? But you will remember the peregrine falcon which was caught in the tackle yarn of your boat, the Charlotte, as she sailed in the Mediterranean. That day you climbed up by the shrouds of the topgallant mast to help her out in a stiff wind and with a high sea. That falcon was me. We Lapps often fly in such a manner to see the world. When I first met you, I was on my way to Africa to see my younger sister and her children. She is a falcon too, when she chooses. By that time she was living at Takaonga, within an old ruined tower, which down there they call a minaret. She swathed a corner of her skirt round her thumb and bit at it. "We do not forget," she said. "I hacked your thumb when you took hold of me. It is only fair that I should cut my thumb for you tonight." She came close to him and gently rubbed her 2 brown claw-like fingers against his forehead. "So you are a boy," she said, "who will kill a man rather than be late to meet your sweetheart? We hold together, the females of this earth. I shall mark your forehead now, so that the girls will know of that when they look at you, and they will like you for it." She played with the boy's hair and twisted it round her finger. "Listen now, my little bird," said she. "My great-grandson's brother-in-law is lying with his boat at the landing place at this moment. He is to take a consignment of skins out to a Danish boat. He will bring you back to your boat in time before your mate comes. The Heber is sailing tomorrow morning, is it not so? But when you are aboard, give him back my cap for me." She took up his knife, wiped it in her skirt, and handed it to him. "Here is your knife," she said. "You will stick it into no more men. You will not need to. For from now you will sail the seas like a faithful seaman. We have enough trouble with our sons as it is." The bewildered boy began to stammer his thanks to her. "Wait," said she. "I shall make you a cup of coffee to bring back your wits while I wash your jacket." She went and rattled an old copper kettle upon the fireplace. After a while she handed him a hot, strong black drink in a cup without a handle to it. "You have drunk with St. Ivar now," she said. "You have drunk down a little wisdom, so that in the future all your thoughts shall not fall like raindrops into the salt sea." When he had finished and set down the cup, she led him to the door and opened it for him. He was surprised to see that it was almost clear morning. The house was so high up that the boy could see the sea from it and a milky mist about it. He gave her his hand to say goodbye. She stared into his face. "We do not forget," she said. "And you knocked me on the head there, high up in the mast. I shall give you that blow back." With that she smacked him on the ear as hard as she could, so that his head swam. "Now we are quits," she said, gave him a great mischievous shining glance and a little push down the doorstep, and nodded to him. In this way the sailor boy got back to his ship, which was to sail the next morning, and lived to tell the story. The end. I quite like that one. I think that's... I mean, I'm always a fan of, people who can, shapeshift and stuff. That's always a fun one to have in a story. Recky's secret backstory. Oh, no, Recky wouldn't be that nice. Also, Recky's not old. Well, she technically is old for an Aarakocra, but yeah, I quite liked that one. Yeah. So, yeah, that was that one. I will take us to an early break, I think. It was cool, wasn't it? Yeah, I liked it. Yeah. Yeah, I'll take us to an early break. It might be a stream that ends a bit earlier today, but it's always quite difficult to fit three short stories in, because for some reason none of my stories really fit. All the ones I have in books. So yes, we shall go to an early break. So go to break related things. Excuse me. Excuse me. My favourite Russian fairy tale is Maria Morevna, which features 3 inexplicably shape-shifting brothers-in-law. Sounds great. But yes, go do break related things, and we will see you back in about 5 minutes. Bye for now. turn. Hello, welcome back. Hope you all had a good break. Yeah. I also chose that previous story because, you know, as Smallcog says, birds are indeed cool. Especially peregrine falcons. Very cool birds. Fastest things on the planet. Well, fastest animals on the planet. Not fastest things on the planet. They can stoop, which is diving, I think, over 200 miles an hour or something stupid. It's, yeah, a little bit OP. Just to turn you off to head home. Well, yes, happy... Oh, God, is it happy? Hang on. I'm really bad with knowing about religious festivals. Passover? But yes, have a good evening. Miss Alburb, yes, Nyum, all these things. And thank you for being here, Shiny Happy Goth. Yes, I think one more story. I might possibly put in another one. We'll see. Yeah. Passover, sorry, yes. Well, happy Passover. If indeed one says happy Passover, I don't know. As I say, I'm bad. I'm bad at this stuff. But yes. Let us. I have put the text for the next one up. Let's I guess continue if everybody is back and ready for another story. This is quite a existential one, I guess, moral tale kind of thing. But yes, if we are all sitting comfortably, then oh yeah, this author's got a good name as well. We shall go on with our next story, which is The Dead Are Silent by Arthur Schnitzler. He could not bear sitting in the carriage any longer. He got up and walked up and down. It was already dark. The few street lamps in this quiet side street flickered in the wind. It had stopped raining, and the sidewalks were almost dry, but the streets were still wet, and here and there a puddle had formed. It's strange, thought Franz, how here, but 100 feet away from the Praterstrasse, one can imagine oneself in a little Hungarian town. In any case, it was safe here, for in this street she would not be liable to meet any of her acquaintances. He looked at his watch. 7 o'clock, and night had already fallen. An early autumn this year, and the cursed rain. He pulled up his collar and walked up and down more quickly. The panes in the street lamps rattled. A half-hour more, he murmured to himself, and if she's not here then, I can go. I almost wish that the half hour were up. He remained standing at the corner, for here he had a commanding view of the two streets, on either of which she might come. Yes, today she'll come, he thought, as he held on to his hat, which threatened to blow away. Friday, faculty meeting, then she'll dare come, and will even stay longer. He heard the ringing of the horse cars, and now the church bells began to ring. The street became more lively. More people passed, and it seemed to him that they were mostly shopgirls and clerks. All of them walked quickly, and seemed to be fighting the storm. No one paid any attention to him. Only 2 shopgirls gazed curiously up at him. Suddenly he saw a familiar figure hurrying toward him. He went quickly to meet her. Not in a carriage? Was it she? It was, and as she became aware of him, she walked more slowly. "You come on foot?" he asked. "I discharged my carriage before we reached this street, because I think I've had the same coachman before." A man walked past and gave her a cursory glance. The young man stared at him, almost threateningly. He hurried on. The woman followed him with her eyes. "Who was it?" she asked, frightened. "I don't know him. You'll meet none of your acquaintances here, so you can rest easy. But come more quickly and get into the carriage." "Is it yours?" "Yes." "Is it open?" "An hour ago the weather was ideal." They hurried to the waiting carriage and got in. "Driver," called the young man. "Where has he gone to?" the young woman asked. Franz looked all about. "It's unbelievable," he cried. "I don't see the fellow anywhere." "For heaven's sake," she cried softly. "Wait a minute, dear, he must be here." He opened the door of the little inn. The driver was sitting at a table with some people. Now he rose quickly. "Right here, sir," he cried, and finished his glass of grog standing up. "What in the deuce has got into you to keep us waiting like this?" "Excuse me, sir, but I'm right with you now." Swaying a little from side to side, he hurried to the carriage. "Where do you want to drive, sir?" "The Prater." The young man got in. His companion lay huddled up in the corner. Franz took both of her hands in his. She remained immobile. "Well, won't you at least say good evening to me?" "Please let me alone for just a few moments. I'm still quite out of breath." He leaned back in his corner. Both were silent for a while. The carriage had turned into the Praterstrasse, had passed the Tegthof monument, and in a few seconds was flying down the dark Prater Alley. Suddenly Emma threw her arms about her lover. He quickly raised the veil that separated her lips from his and kissed her. "At last I'm with you," she said. "Do you know how long it has been since we have seen one another?" he asked. "Since Sunday." "Yes, and then only from afar." "Why, what do you mean? You were at our house." "Why, yes, at your house. But this can't go on. I'm never going to your house again. But what's the matter with you?" "A carriage just passed by." "Dear child, the people who are driving in the Prater today aren't really going to bother about us." "That I believe, but one of our friends might see us." "That's impossible. It's too dark to recognize anyone." "Please let us drive somewhere else." "As you wish." He called to the driver, but the latter did not seem to hear. Then he leaned forward and touched him with his hand. The coachman turned around. "You're to turn back. Why are you whipping your horses like that? We're in no hurry, do you hear? Drive to the street that leads to the Reichsbridge." "Yes, sir. And don't go driving like mad. There's no sense in that." "Excuse me, sir, but it's the weather that makes them horses go so wild." They turned back. "Why didn't I see you yesterday?" she suddenly asked. "How could you?" "Why, I thought my sister had invited you also." "She did." "And why didn't you come?" "Because I cannot bear to be with you when others are around. No, never again." She shrugged her shoulders. "Where are we?" she then asked. They were driving under the railroad bridge into the Reichsstrasse. That's the road to the Danube," said Franz. "We're on the way to the Reichsbridge. You'll meet none of your friends there," he added in a jesting tone. "The carriage is swaying terribly." "That's because we're driving over cobblestones." "But why does he drive in such zigzags?" "You think he does?" But he himself thought that they were being tossed about much more violently than was necessary. He did not, however, want to alarm her. "I have some serious things to talk to you about today, Emma." "Then you'll have to begin right away, because I have to be home by 9 o'clock. "All can be settled in 2 words. "My God, what's that?" she suddenly cried. The carriage had been running in the car tracks, and now, as the coachman was trying to get out, it hung for a moment at such an angle that it almost overturned. Franz seized the driver by his cloak and cried, "Will you stop? Why, you're drunk!" With effort, the horses were brought to a standstill. "But, sir—" "Come, Emma, let us get out here." "Where are we?" "At the bridge already. It's not so stormy now, so let us walk a bit. We can't really talk in a carriage." Emma lowered her veil and followed. "You don't call this stormy?" she exclaimed as a gust of wind whirled about her. He took her arm. "Follow us," he called to the driver. They walked on ahead. When they heard the water rushing below them, they stopped. It was pitch dark. The broad river looked like a boundless expanse of grey. In the distance they saw red lights, which appeared to sway over the river and reflect themselves on its bosom. The lights on the bank which they had just left seemed to be dissolving themselves into the water. Now faint thunder, which came nearer and nearer, was audible. Both looked at the spot where the red lights shone. Trains with lighted windows came out of the night and disappeared again. The thunder gradually subsided, and, except for an occasional gust of wind, quiet reigned. After a long silence, Franz said, "We ought to go away." "Of course," Emma answered softly. "We ought to go away," Franz repeated with animation. "I mean far away." "It can't be done." "Because we're cowards. That's why it can't be done." "And my child?" "I'm positive he'd let you take him." "And how shall we do it?" she asked softly. "Steal away in the dead of night?" "No, certainly not. All you have to do is simply tell him that you can't live with him any longer because you belong to another." "Are you out of your mind, Franz?" "If you prefer, I'll spare you that too. I'll tell him myself." "You'll not do that, Franz." He tried to see her face, but all he noticed was that she had lifted her head and had turned it toward him. He was silent for a while. Then he said quietly, "Don't be afraid, I'll not do it." They were now approaching the other shore. "Don't you hear something?" she asked. "What is it?" "It comes from over there." Slowly it came out of the night, a small red light. Soon they saw it shone from a lantern tied to the front part of a peasant's cart. But they could not see whether anyone was in the wagon. Right in back of it lumbered 2 other carts. On the last they made out a man in peasant's dress who was lighting his pipe. The wagons drove by. Then they heard nothing but the slow movement of the carriage, which kept about 20 paces ahead of them. Now the bridge gradually sank to the level of the other shore. They saw how the street ran on, between rows of trees, into the night. On both sides of them lay meadows, which looked like deep abysses. After a long silence, Franz suddenly said, "Well, this is the last time." "What?" asked Emma in a worried tone. "That we'll be together. Stay with him. I'll say goodbye to you." "Are you in earnest?" "Absolutely." "Now you see that it is always you who spoils the few hours we spend together, and not I." Yes, you're right," said Franz. "Come, let's drive back." She held his arm more firmly. "No," she said tenderly. "Not now. I'm not going to let you send me away like that." She drew him down toward her and kissed him. "If we kept right on this road, where should we get to?" "Prague, my dear." "Well, we won't go that far," she replied, smiling. "But let's go on a bit further, if you don't mind." "Hey, driver!" called Franz. The carriage rolled on. Franz ran after it. Now he saw that the driver had fallen asleep. By calling loudly enough, Franz finally succeeded in waking him. We're going to drive a little further along this straight road. Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir. All right, sir." They stepped in. The coachman whipped up the horses, and they raced down the muddy road. The couple in the carriage were folded in each other's arms while they were tossed from one side to the other. "Isn't this glorious?" Emma whispered, with her lips almost touching his. At this moment it seemed to her as if the carriage had shot up into the air. She felt herself hurled out. She tried to seize hold of something, and only clawed in the air. It seemed to her that she spun round and round in a circle at such a speed that she must close her eyes. Then she felt herself lying on the ground, and a terrible, heavy quiet hung over her, as if she were all alone, far away from the world. Presently she heard noises, horses' hoofs pawing the ground near her, and a soft whinnying, but she could see nothing. A terrible fear gripped her. She cried out, and her fear became greater, for she could not hear her own voice. All of a sudden, she knew exactly what had happened. The carriage had hit something, probably a milestone, had overturned, and they had been thrown out. Where was Franz? She called his name, and she heard her voice, very vaguely, but she heard it. There was no answer. She tried to rise. She was able to sit up, and as she put forth her two hands she felt a human body next to her. And now, as her eyes had become accustomed to the darkness, she could see more clearly. Franz lay on the ground, motionless. She touched his face with her hand, and felt something warm and damp flowing over it. She caught her breath. Blood. Franz was wounded and unconscious. And the driver, where was he? She called to him. No answer. She was still sitting on the ground. Nothing had happened to her, she thought, although she felt pains in all parts of her body. "Franz," she called. A voice close by answered, "Where are you, miss? And where's the gentleman? Nothing's happened, has it? Wait a minute, miss. I'll light one of the lamps so we can see better. I don't know what's got into them horses today. It ain't my fault, as true as I'm living." Emma had risen by this time in spite of her pains, and she was relieved to find that the coachman was not injured. She heard him open the lamp and strike a match. In terrible fear she waited for the light. She did not dare touch Franz again, who lay stretched out on the earth. A ray of light came from the side. She saw the carriage, which to her surprise was not quite overturned, but was lying up against the main drain, as if one of the wheels had come off. The horses were standing stock still. The light came nearer. She watched it as it crept over a milestone, over the stone heap, then on Franz's feet, on his body, and finally on his face, where it remained. The driver had placed the lamp on the ground beside Franz's head. Emma knelt down, and when she saw his face, it seemed as if her heart stopped beating. His face was pale, his eyes were half open, and only the whites were visible. From the right temple trickled a small stream of blood, which, passing over the cheek, lost itself under the collar. His teeth had bitten into his lower lip. "It isn't possible," Emma murmured to herself. The coachman was also on his knees, staring at the face. Then he took hold of the head with both of his hands and raised it. "What are you doing?" screamed Emma, and recoiled from the head, which seemed to rise of its own accord. "It looks to me, miss, like an awful accident." "It isn't true," said Emma. It can't be true. Did anything happen to you? And me?" The driver slowly lowered the head of the unconscious man into Emma's lap. She trembled. "If only somebody had come. If only them peasants had come. If only somebody had come. If only them peasants had come a quarter of an hour ago." "What shall we do?" Emma asked, her lips trembling. Yes, miss, if that there carriage only weren't broken. But now we've simply got to wait until someone comes. He went on talking, but Emma was not listening. She regained control of her thoughts and knew how to act. "How far is it to the nearest house?" she asked. "Not far, miss. We're almost in Franz Joseph's land. We'd see the houses if it was light. It's only about 5 minutes away." "Well, you go and get help. I'll stay here." "Yes, miss, but I think it'd be better if I stayed here with you. It won't be long before somebody is sure to turn up." "Then it may be too late. We need a doctor." The driver looked at the face of the motionless man. Then he looked at Emma, shaking his head. "That you can't know," cried Emma. "Nor I either." "Yes, miss. But where'll I find a doctor in Franz Joseph's land? From there someone can go to the city and... Do you know what, miss? They've probably got telephones there, and I could call an ambulance." "Yes, that's the best thing to do. But hurry up, for heaven's sake. And bring help, and please go now this minute." "Why, what are you doing?" The driver was looking at the pale face in Emma's lap. "Ambulance? Doctor? It's too late for them to do any good." "Oh, please go now, for God's sake, go." "I'll go, all right, only don't get scared here in the dark, miss." He hurried off down the street, and Emma was alone with the inanimate body in the dark street. It wasn't possible. That thought kept going through her head. Of a sudden, she seemed to feel someone breathing right next to her. She leaned over and looked at the white lips. No, there was no breath coming from them. The blood on the temple and the cheek had dried. She looked at the eyes and trembled. This was death. There was a dead man on her lap. And with shaking hands she raised the head and placed it on the ground. A terrible feeling of abandonment came over her. Why had she sent the driver away? How foolish of her! What should she do here on the high road with a corpse? If anyone should come along, what would she do if any people came along? She looked at the dead man again. The light of the lamp seemed to her kind and friendly, for which she ought to be thankful. She gazed at it so long that her eyes blinked, and everything began to dance before her. Suddenly she had the sensation of being awakened. She jumped up. She couldn't be found here with him. What was she waiting for? Voices were now audible in the distance. Already? She thought. She listened fearfully. The voices came from the direction of the bridge. Those could not be the people whom the coachman had gone to get. But whoever they were, they would certainly notice the light, and that could not be, for then she would be discovered. She kicked the lamp over. The light was extinguished. Now she was in total darkness. She did not see him any more. The voices came nearer. Only the white stone heap was visible now. She now began to tremble in her whole body. Not to be discovered there, that was the important thing. She was lost if anyone found out that she had had a liaison. But the people passed on. And now she would have to go to the police station, and everybody would find it out, and her husband, and her child. Then she realized that she had been standing as if rooted to the ground, that she could go away, that by staying she would only bring unhappiness upon herself. She took a step. Soon she was in the middle of the street. She looked ahead and saw the outlines of the long grey road. There was the city. She could not see it, but she knew the direction. Once more she turned around. She could see the horses and the carriage, and when she tried very hard she could make out something that looked like the outline of a human body stretched out on the ground. With all her might she tore herself away. The ground was wet, and the mud had sucked in her shoes. She walked faster. She ran back, into the light, the noise and the people. The street seemed to run toward her, and she held up her skirt in order to keep from falling. The wind was at her back, and it seemed to be driving her ahead. She remembered that she was fleeing from living people who must now be at the spot, and also looking for her. What would they think? But no one could possibly guess who the woman was with the man in the carriage. The driver did not know her, and he would never be able to recognize her if he saw her. It was very wise that she did not stay, and it was not wrong of her to have left. Franz himself would have said that she was in the right. She hurried toward the city, whose lights she saw under the railroad bridge at the end of the street. Just this one lonely street, and then she would be safe. She heard a shrill whistling in the distance, growing shriller, drawing nearer. A wagon flew past. Involuntarily she stopped and watched it. It was the ambulance, and she knew its destination. How quick, she thought. It was like magic. For a moment she had the most terrible feeling of shame she had ever experienced. She knew that she had been cowardly. But as the whistling grew fainter, a wild joy seized her, and she rushed on. People came toward her. She was not afraid of them anymore. The worst was over. The noise of the city became more audible, and there was more light. Already she saw the rows of houses on the Praterstrasse, and it seemed to her as if she were being expected there by a crowd of people in which she could disappear without leaving a trace behind her. As she came under a street lamp, she was calm enough to look at her watch. It was 9:10. It seemed to her as if she were entirely forgiven, as if none of the blame had been hers. She was a woman, and she had a child and a husband. She had done right. It was her duty. Had she stayed, she would have been discovered, and the newspapers, she would have been ostracized forever. There was the Tegethoff monument where many streets met. There were very few people abroad, but to her it seemed as if the whole life of the city were whirling about her. She had time. She knew that her husband would not be home till nearly 10. She even had time to change her clothes. She looked at her dress. It was covered with mud. What would she tell her maid? It went through her head that a full account of the accident would be in all the morning papers, and it would tell of the woman who was in the carriage at the time of the accident, and then could not be found. These thoughts made her tremble again. An imprudent thing, and all her cowardice had been for naught. But she had her key with her. She need not ring the bell. She would be quiet, and no one would hear her. She got hurriedly into a carriage. She was about to give the coachman her address, when she thought that that would be unwise, and she gave him the name of the first street that came to her head. She had but one wish, to be safe at home. Nothing else made any difference. She was not heartless, yet she was sure that days would come when she would doubt, and perhaps that doubt would ruin her. But now her only desire was to be at home, dry-eyed, at the table with her husband and child. The carriage was driving through the inner city. She stopped in a side street off the ring, got out of the carriage, hurried round the corner, got into another carriage, and gave her right address to the driver. She was incapable of even thinking any more. She closed her eyes, and the carriage began to shake. She was afraid of being thrown out as before, and screamed. Then the carriage came to a stop in front of her home. She hurriedly got out, and quickly, with soft steps, passed the porter's window so that she would not be noticed. She ran up the stairs, softly opened the door, through the hall into her bedroom. It was done. She turned on the light, tore off her clothes and hid them in a closet. They would dry overnight. Tomorrow she would brush them herself. Then she washed her hands and face and put on a dressing gown. Then the doorbell rang. She heard the maid going to the door. She heard her husband's voice, and she heard his cane rattle in the umbrella jar. She felt that she must be strong, or all would have been in vain. She hurried into the dining room so that she entered at the same moment that her husband did. "You're at home already?" he asked. "Surely," she answered. "I've been here quite a while." "The maid didn't see you come in." She smiled without trying, but it tired her to smile. He kissed her on the brow. Their little boy was already at the table. He had had to wait long and had fallen asleep. His book was on the plate, and his face rested on the open book. She sat down next to him, her husband opposite. He picked up a newspaper and glanced through it, then put it down and said, "The others are still at the meeting, discussing things." "What?" she asked. And he started to tell her of the meeting. Emma pretended that she was listening and kept nodding her head. But she heard nothing. She did not know what he was speaking about. She felt as one who had wonderfully escaped from some terrible danger. As her husband talked, she moved her chair nearer to her son and pressed his head against her breast. A feeling of great weariness crept over her. She could not control herself. She felt that sleep was overpowering her, and she closed her eyes. Suddenly a thought flashed through her mind that had not occurred to her since she picked herself up out of the ditch. If he were not dead at all? If he should say to the doctors, "There was a woman with me and she must have also been thrown out," what then? "What is the matter?" asked the professor earnestly as he looked up. Why, the matter? Yes, what is the matter with you?" "Nothing." She pressed her boy close to her breast. The professor looked at her for a long while, silently. "Do you know that you began to doze and suddenly cried out?" "Really?" "Yes, as if you had had a bad dream. Were you dreaming?" I really don't know." She saw her image in the mirror, smiling horribly. Her face was all drawn. She knew that it was herself, but she shrank away from it. Her face had become fixed, and she could not move her mouth. She tried to cry out. Then she felt 2 hands on her shoulders, and she noticed that the face of her husband had come between her and the mirror. His eyes, questioning, threatening, sank into hers. She knew that if she did not stand this last test, all was lost. She felt that she was regaining her strength. She had entire control of herself, and she knew that she must make use of this valuable moment. She took her husband's arms from her shoulders, drew him toward her, and gazed at him, gaily and tenderly. As she felt her husband's lips on her brow, she thought, "Surely, a bad dream. He must be dead, and the dead are silent." "Why did you say that?" she suddenly heard her husband ask. "What did I say?" And it seemed to her as if she had told the whole story aloud. And once more she asked, as she faltered under his stern gaze, "What did I say?" "The dead are silent," he repeated very slowly. "Yes," she said. "Yes." But she read in his eyes that she could not hide anything more from him. They gazed at each other for a long time. "Put the boy to bed," he said to her. "I think you have something more to tell me." "Yes," she answered. She knew that in a few minutes she was going to tell this man, whom she had deceived for years, the whole truth. And, as she slowly went out through the door with her son and felt her husband's eyes upon her, a feeling of quiet stole over her, as if everything was going to be put to rights again. The end. That's a depressing one. I think moral of that story is don't have affairs. And don't drink drive. Or entrust yourself with a drunk driver. To a drunk driver, whatever. Yeah, affairs do seem messy. She's haunted and not by ghosts, exactly. In short, just be decent. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I will stop there for tonight, I think. Because I'm getting quite tired. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed those 2 little short stories. There will be more next week. I will be back next week with more. And in theory, Sam will be back with more weird book on Saturday. Oh, excuse me. But yes, good to be back. Although for not that long. Sorry about that. And yes, have a good rest of your week, everybody. Go take care of yourselves and those around you. Go be the good people that you are. Thank you all very much for being here, and we shall see you again soon. Goodbye.